Get our experts to talk about the overall trade setup. We got Parag Thakkar joining us in our studio, and we also have Dilip Bhat joining us. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Dilip, is this time to go out and do bottom fishing, or could we be looking at even bigger bottom going forward?
Anuj, well, these are really panic times at the moment, and I think the panic really comes from the fear of the unknown, and I think China is the one which is really generated a good amount of fear in the markets world over. So we may see some intermittent rallies also, but my own suggestion is that probably we should still wait for a while, maybe a fortnight or so, to see how the things settle down, or maybe a month even, rather than just jump to the conclusion that maybe this is the end of it. Because when there is some amount of fear and panic, I think all other rationality takes a backseat, and especially when the fear is of unknown, where China, which is what China is. You knew what Greece was, you knew all the parameters, but China is still a unknown entity at the moment, where a lot of things just come out, and there is very little to rationalize. Only on a hindsight you can make some sense out of it.
Okay, well, so, for someone who has a slightly, 3 to 4 year longer view, Dilip, do you still suggest that one should wait, or do you think that, this is a good time perhaps to buy some of those larger cap quality names that you always wanted to buy?
So sure, Sonia, what you can really do is you can just forget about the markets wherever it goes over next 15 days. It doesn't matter. If that is the approach, then surely I think it is really very good time to buy. Certainly, if your time frame is say something like say next September to December, I think it would be the time to buy. Yes.
What would top your shopping basket in terms of 3 or 4 stocks that look really good to you from the index?
From which angle you said, Anuj?
From long-term investment point of view, any 3 or 4 index stocks that you would want to buy right now?
Well, I think in these times when some of the front lines also are given away, I think at these times it's better to acquire some of the better known frontline stocks, especially in the banking names. Some of the private sector banks like HDFC, or whether it's ICICI Bank or Axis Bank, and maybe something like an SBI. But once again, as what I said, that you should be ready for some kind of an ambush which can possibly happen over next 15 days to 20 days. That's not impossible. But yes, if you're still talking about something like next September to December, I think some of these stocks in the private sector banks, they look good. Or something even in pharma space, something like a Sun Pharma or a Lupin or a Cipla probably would still qualify to have a look.
Okay, Parag.
Current pharma has doubled in the last 12 months, and even in trade today, before the big fall that we saw, Torrent Pharma has hit a fresh 52-week high, or if not lifetime high, 1635 now on that stock. Dilip, the biggest movers this year have been, names like Sun Pharma and Lupin, and even in a market like this, Sun Pharma has rallied almost about 2% or so, or rather 1%. What would your top picks be in that space?
Well, Sonia, I sense that maybe people are scampering to safety at the moment. So maybe that is what it really explains why people are, in spite of the fact that they are up, and yet people are going after them. Because in times like this, I think look at resilience and maybe something like a blue chip where where you can really hide. But having said that, I still feel that yes, Sun Pharma still qualifies as one of the stocks in spite of the fact that it has gone up. On a longer term basis, it can still give a good 20-25% return from the current levels.
Dilip, the sector that's really broken the back of the bulls has been private sector financials, led by ICICI's 30% fall. But even HDFC Bank and HDFC, even in the last bull market correction, I don't recall seeing this kind of steep correction in some of these names. Is there something going wrong that we cannot read right now? And can we see much lower levels in the names, so like HDFC Bank, HDFC, Kotak, Axis, or is it a good time to buy these stocks now?
Well, possibly one can rationalize it in this way, that when we are seeing the net FI selling, it's almost about $2.6 billion in August is what we understand. But I think if people have to really sell, especially the FIIs, I think at this level, with most of the other stocks really trading quite a bit low, I think people, FIIs would still look at the liquid names. And these are some of the very liquid names that we are talking about, whether it's ICICI, whether it's HDFC or HDFC Bank, or some of the private sector names where the volumes are pretty good. So if the FIs continue to be at the exit door, I think some of these stocks probably still remain vulnerable for a further decline. That's not very impossible to imagine. And I think that also partly explains why they are also down.